Entering the Mayo Experience.
That Mayo Experience. That Mayo Experience. That Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to another edition of the Dog or Pass podcast. This for UFC 232, Jones versus Gustafsson 2. Whole bunch of crazy drama and all of that type of stuff leading into this card, and hopefully me and my co-host Cody Saftic will break it down. But we're in a little bit of a bare bones stage here. You know, we had holidays and all of that stuff. There's a little bit less graphical elements this week. We will get right back on top of our regular scheduled programming in the new year here, and frankly, Cody's not even here. This is, I think, the first time I've ever done a show without him in studio. How's it going, Cody, who is coming from a vacation locale around the world?
Yeah, vacation locale, Truro, Nova Scotia, the lovely Truro, Nova Scotia. And I flew out of Toronto and it was like 1 degree outside. And we got here and it's like minus 23. So a bit of a change, but happy to be talking the fights. And you're right, it's been a very exciting week in recent developments. So no matter how cold I am, things are heating up, Paul.
Yes, sir. So if you've been living under a rock or just not paying attention to the MMA landscape since basically last week there, this fight is no longer happening in Las Vegas. It has been lifted. It is going to California. Jon Jones still had a small, minute trace of Turinabol. I don't know if that's the exact drug that he had in his system. So Vegas was like, we're not doing this. Everybody from our commission is on vacation. Believe what you want to believe about all of this, but everything is getting lifted.
That don't sound right.
Nah, something sounds fishy for sure. Everything's getting lifted, brought over to California. They're selling out the LA Forum. Frankly, at the end of the day, what happens here is they're selling way more pay-per-views because of all of this stuff. You know, all of the people, everything gets lost in the shuffle during the holidays, and what happens? There's this big chaos. Everyone goes, oh my God, is Jon Jones back on the juice? Blah, 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 blah. Controversy sells, man. And they're going to be selling way more pay-per-views. Like, you've just seen it all over the news, all on the mainstream stuff. Like, this is a good thing for the UFC as much as it looks like a bad thing.
Yeah, it could be. If they weren't drumming up enough interest based on, hey, here's a rematch of a fight that was voted potential fight of the year candidate. We got the returning Jon Jones, greatest of all time, Alexander Gustafsson. People seem to like the guy. Exciting style. They've got history. Yeah, if it wasn't going to sell beforehand, 2 title fights, all that jazz, obviously Emmanuel Nunes is never going to sell unless you got the right dance partner. It doesn't seem like for a card that is actually loaded, and I'm excited for basically all these matchups. Yeah, if it was lacking that little bit of extra push, then maybe the bad news is something for that. I tend to go the other way. I would rather, I'm going to watch the fight. I would rather not pay money for a pay-per-view and watch Jon Jones, whom I despise personally, think he's the greatest talent of all time, just don't like the guy. I don't care to support him and buy the pay-per-view. However, this is a good-looking card. And I'm excited to see him come back one form or another, because as much as you could not like the guy, you cannot discredit him. Steroids or no steroids, he's the greatest American fighter of all time.
Yes.
He's likely the greatest mixed martial artist of all time. And to think that Alexander Gustafsson, banged up, damaged goods, coming up a 2-year-long layoff, hasn't looked good in his last number, to think that he's going to come in here and give Jon Jones a go, I don't know. I don't see it. I like the odds on this a lot, and I could see Jon Jones, because he's got such a massive chip on his shoulder, something to prove. If he turns it up on Gustafsson, even though he's more traditionally a 5-round kind of guy, even though he's more traditionally a decision kind of guy, I could see Jon Jones forcing a late stoppage here. I got a sense that the time off may have done him some good, and maybe he got the parting out of his system, maybe he didn't, but his boxing looks way better. His last fight against Daniel Cormier, the argument that his striking never looked better there. Cormier's a guy that's never been finished, and he got a big old shin on the top of his head. Like, I think Jon Jones might have added new wrinkles to his game, and that's just crazy to fathom, considering how good he was to begin with. So, I got to go with Bones here.
Yeah, Jon Jones is 9,100 on DraftKings and a minus 255 favorite. Alexander Gustafsson is 7,100 and plus 235. We saw this fight years ago, and frankly, it would be different if it was like, oh, Gustafsson's been on this great run. Gustafsson's been doing all of these great things, but this was a guy who was thinking about hanging them up not that long ago, it doesn't feel like, and it was because of concussion issues and all of these other issues that, frankly, time off for Jones probably helps. The guy is always evolving. Like, you can discredit him for a lot of things. He's a horrendous human being, but for being a great martial artist. Like you cannot deny that. Frankly, we talk about the drugs issues and everything like that, and why it's getting lifted to California. If this guy is using again, and he's been using a masking agent, and this small little bit just happened to sneak through, but not enough that they would cancel the fight. I mean, hey, I already liked him in this spot. I already liked him to win. The line is staying pretty much the same. The DraftKings pricing is what it is. The last time these guys fought, it was a super high volume, crazy fight where I don't know off the top of my head how many points he scored, but I guarantee you it was a lot. If he just happens to be on something, I mean, I like Jon Jones more. Like, tell me I'm crazy.
No, I agree. The one thing that's tempting here is I think when you look at it on paper, like I'm not going with Gustafsson. As far as straight up goes, I know a lot of people are chasing that dog money. The dog money's not good enough for me. It's not big enough for me. No. Jon Jones is Jon Jones. So I get the layoff and I get the uncertainties and this and that. But at the end of the day, he's coming off what could be perhaps a career best performance. And whenever you see him on Instagram, you see him on social media, whatever, it's not as if the guy's sitting around. You know, he's been spending a lot of time in strength and conditioning and his boxing. And maybe the strength and conditioning was a little overboard in that fight with OSP, but he corrected those mistakes and again, looked, career best against Daniel Cormier. The one thing that is tempting is $7,100 on Alexander Gustafsson. That ain't a bad price, man. Because again, if Jones is going to finish him, he's going to finish him late. I don't think he goes out there and starches him in the first 2 rounds. And yeah, you mentioned last time, not only is it a back and forth fight, but Gustafsson shows he can strike with him. And well, Gustafsson has that little wrinkle in his game where the guy's actually not a bad wrestler, especially for a European fighter from Sweden. He can wrestle. He's got takedowns over Jones. He's got takedowns over Daniel Cormier. It's that underrated skill. The thing is that I have not really seen many improvements from Gustafsson over the years. The wrestling was there, but, is it going to be enough to consistently take down a guy like Jones and hold him down? I don't think so. He outboxed Jones maybe a little bit in that first fight, but has his boxing made any improvements since that fight? No. Jones has. Technically speaking, he's evolved as a striker, and I don't really see that progression from Alexander Gustafsson. But for 7,100, I mean, if Gustafsson goes out there guns a-blazing, completes a couple takedowns and Jones is going to pop right back up, then he's going to score enough that if you're playing a cash game, you need to save some money because it's a 5-rounder and because he's a top-ranked good opponent, he should be able to at least somewhat score close to at least his value in that 7,100. Maybe he can go get you 70, 80 points, even if he loses. And if for whatever reason he shocks the world and a lot of people are backing him just because they hate Jon Jones, that's why you're not going to get money line price on him. But as far as the DraftKings price goes, I think you could definitely use him as a floater in some spots. But no, I think we're on the same page here in that you can't discredit Jon Jones. And listen, Turinabol stays in your system for 16 hours. So at the fact that it's in his system months later, I don't buy it. But, it's you talk to a lot of people who are like, this is their jam, like cycling and all that, and they seem to be on his side. You talk to the casual fan that just likes to throw shade at somebody, and they're against him. So I'm just going to reserve judgment, hang out in the middle. I'm here to watch a fist fight. That's what I'm going to get. I'm not a big Gustafsson guy. I've honestly never been a big Gustafsson guy. A very entertaining fight. He's a very entertaining fighter. There has been moments where it's like, damn, that knockout over Glover Teixeira. Damn, this guy, he is making those moves. That fight with Daniel Cormier, what a crazy fight. His fight with Jones, what a crazy fight. But I just look back at all those moments that I really didn't get a good impression out of him. Him getting smoked out by Anthony Johnson, crying afterwards. That's the beginning of his concussion problems. The Cormier fight never got finished, but the amount of damage he sustained in that fight, he comes back a year later against Jan Blachowicz, couldn't pull the trigger. Again, Jan Blachowicz kind of a hard style, I guess, as far as striking goes. And then the Glover fight, yeah, he looks good. Takes him all 5 rounds to kind of get Glover out of there, and you're taking on an age-broken down Glover Teixeira, but then you're going to shelf him for another almost 2 years, shy of 2 years. Like I can't get fully behind him. I think the people that are cheering for him and that are backing him fully don't like Jon Jones. They just want to see Jon Jones lose. He could be fighting literally anybody, and they'd be backing the other side. So that's what I get the feeling out of there. But last point here is if Jon Jones is coming off a 2-year-long suspension, or he's coming off his suspension, his layoff, and, there's some uncertainties, what kind of Jones is returning and what was in his system. If he's seeing Daniel Cormier tomorrow night, or he started on Saturday night, geez, I think a guy like Cormier, who, like you said, is on a run right now and is in great shape and is fighting some of his best fights right now, he takes on a top contender. If he came back on the sidelines and he took on, a dangerous 205 or even a Millender Latifi type guy that, could keep the fight standing and wing some big heavy bombs at him, maybe catch him. We've seen Jones get caught before, but he can take a punch pretty good. That is those uncertainties. Gustafsson, I don't fucking see it, dude. I just don't think he's got the power to physically hurt Jones. Yeah, he can hurt him as in I hit you 100 times and we're both going to the hospital tomorrow. But he doesn't get the one punch power, I don't think, to get Jones' attention. And I don't think that him coming off his own layoff, he's not in his prime. He's not fighting another prime fighter. Jones is fighting another guy who's in a very similar situation to him. Time off on the sideline. Only Jones is on the sideline chomping at the bit because he's not injured. He's got a suspension. Whereas Gustafsson's sitting on the sideline, not getting hard sparring in, not getting hard rounds in, not pushing himself overly hard. He's fought one time in the last, nearly 3 years. And I don't know. Maybe I'm being pessimistic on Gustafsson, but I don't see it. I really don't.
Well, let's see if we have a little dissension on the next one. We move to the women's featherweight division. We have Christiane Cyborg Justino taking on Amanda the Lioness Nunes. Cyborg is 9,200 and minus 240. Nunes is 7,000 and plus 220. How do you see this one shaking out?
Yeah, this is another interesting fight. I mean, as far as money line goes, I think they've got it bang on with Cyborg. Like, I would be willing to play that all day. The DraftKings is a little different because I think you've got to look at recent history with Cyborg and you think, geez, she scores a lot of these quick knockouts. She's always coming forward. She's always putting it on her opponent. But I think a lot of the time Cyborg does that because she just knows how overmatched her opponent is, how overwhelmed her opponent is. Sometimes she gets real sloppy in there, Paul. Like, she's not really sticking to her technical striking, but it don't fucking matter because she can wing punch, she can be aggressive, she can make mistakes, and at the same time, it's okay. She's going to hit you. You're already curling up. You're already moving backwards. You can get away with that. You see her start to be a little bit smarter as she takes on a higher level of competition. The Holly Holm fight. Somehow, no idea, but somehow 2 judges actually scored 2 of those rounds for Holly Holm, being that Cyborg's a lot more measured. She's not just going to go out there and bull rush you anymore. She's going to fight you properly. And as far as technically speaking, Sam, I think she's technically a better striker than Amanda Nunes. Nunes is a black belt, so is Cyborg. Nunes can't really wrestle, but she's a big, strong brute. She can pull you to the mat. And, well, Cyborg's kind of the same thing. I give wrestling advantage to Cyborg. I give pure jiu-jitsu advantage to Cyborg. So what we should have here is 25 minutes of a striking affair. And, again, I think Cyborg is a little bit bigger. She packs a little more power, and she's a little sharper. So she needs to stick to the game plan of being the better fighter and being the more technical fighter and just outpointing Amanda Nunes, not rushing that kill. But if she's not rushing that kill, do you really want to pay the $9,200 for her? So I'm going to avoid her on DraftKings. I think she wins this fight as far as the money line goes. It's no discredit to Amanda Nunes. She's been a great champ at 135. But this is strictly a fight where the UFC says, we got nobody for you at 135. And in fact, you can't sell anything at 135. I mean, yeah, she sold UFC 200, but she didn't sell that. It was UFC 200, and she happened to get bumped into the main event regardless. And her fight with Ronda Rousey, again, you did not sell that. Ronda Rousey sold that. It sells 1 million pay-per-views. Outside of that, she is abysmal. So they're not going to just allow her to sit around at 135 and fight the same old opponents. The Holly Holm fight would have made sense, but again, they're not looking to make that matchup. They have nobody for Cyborg, and this is a fight that could potentially sell. The champion versus champion matchup is 2 strong Brazilian bruisers that got a good reputation as, exciting fighters that generally overmatch their opponents. So let's see them fight each other. But this is why there's weight classes. Amanda Nunes is the best 135-pounder on the planet, and Cyborg is the best 145-pounder in the planet. It is what it is. If you look at the fact that Amanda Nunes has looked tremendous in her last number of fights, but didn't look particularly great against Valentina Shevchenko. Shevchenko, who stands all of 5'5" and now fights at 125 pounds, where she's the champ. If Shevchenko was to fight Nunes tomorrow, I think Shevchenko could still give her a go. Might even be able to beat her. Had a good fight with her in the previous 2 encounters. But imagine Shevchenko in there against Cyborg. It's not that you're discrediting Shevchenko's skill set. It's not that it's just that literally the thought of the size advantage wouldn't get out of your head. You wouldn't be able to get past that. You wouldn't be able to think, well, Shevchenko's faster and the more combos. It's like it's a stupid fight to even think about because you got to think it's like, nah, you don't want to see shit like that. I don't think that she's going to be that much bigger than Nunes, but I mean, it just goes to show you, Cyborg almost died making 135. Yeah. Fuck, she almost died making 140. This girl is gigantic. They waved the golden carrot of multi-million-dollar payday in front of this girl and said, make 35 and fight Ronda, and you will be a very wealthy woman. She tried. She could not. She is large. She is physically built to be a dominant 145er, And outside of that Muay Thai fight with Yorina Bars years back for Lion Fight, she has not really had a whole lot of glimpses of, holes in her game. So, again, I think all hats off to Amanda Nunes. I think Amanda Nunes might be able to survive the 25 minutes because Cyborg hopefully fights a smarter game plan. But ultimately, I think Cyborg's technical boxing and just, that strength. I mean, Nunes is used to coming forward. Well, let's see how she does now that she's taken a step backwards.
Yeah, she basically never takes a step backwards. So the two of them are going to collide in the center. The one issue that I have here with Nunes is the gas tank, right? It's like, I think against Cyborg was winning pretty cleanly in the first couple of rounds against Holly Holm. And she slowed down a little bit. That's where Holm was able to at least make these rounds close. I know that going up another 10 pounds, that should help Amanda Nunes with her own gas tank issues. I know that she's won 5 rounds. She beat Valentina Shevchenko twice, and they had to go the full distance and all of that. But a lot of that was just banking rounds early and then being able to just hold on. She's never really shown that she's got a really an extra gear when you get into round 4 and round 5. And I think that's what you're gonna need to be able to steal those rounds if you're gonna beat Christiane Cyborg Justino in a championship fight.
Yeah, you know what? You're absolutely right. Because the Shevchenko fight, I had her win in the first 2, then she tires. Shevchenko wins 3 and 4. She did come alive a little bit for that 5th. That's what won her the fight, I thought. But it wasn't a very appealing 5th round. It wasn't you put a stamp on a great fight. It was another close fight where those middle rounds she tired and she was able to catch a bit of a second win. But yeah, you don't know that issue is going to be there against Cyborg. Banking those early rounds, that's going to be a problem.
Yeah,
you need to win 3 and 4. Which traditionally she's not a 3 and 4 fighter. And I remember a lot of the time she would always come out with that little nose guard, right? Because her septum's all clogged up. She can't breathe out of her nose. She bails out of what was it, UFC, I think 213. And she says it's illness, but she couldn't breathe out of her nose. She gets surgery to repair a septum. Buddy, I know people got the same surgery. Didn't do shit. So yeah, maybe it's the fact that she has that aggressive style. Maybe it's the fact that she's not getting proper airflow. But regardless of either of those things, yeah, she's not a round 3, 4, and 5 type fighter traditionally. So I think you're looking at 2 fighters who mirror each other very similar.
Yeah, they're very
Only
similar.
The one girl's the big sister and the other girl's the little sister, and I see it playing out accordingly. Although I do see it going the distance.
Yeah, I've seen a little bit of talk about maybe Nunes being able to utilize wrestling, take it down to the mat, but it's just we've always talked about this many a times. Anytime you have a wrestler and the wrestler's the way smaller person, at least in terms of weight, it's hard holding down somebody who's bigger than you. So I just think that's going to be a tough spot for her too. I think we are kind of on the same page that any way that you look at this fight, it's just a really tough stylistic matchup. It's just somebody who's just a little bit better in all little facets than you are, and they're bigger than you as well. So I see this one going the full 5 rounds. But who knows? I don't know if Cyborg will be super, super high volume like she usually is, and she picks her shots for sure.
Yeah, that's the thing. I could see her just picking it. Fight goes the distance, plus 150. And then I think when you look at Nunes, such a quick starter, finishes a lot of opponents, Cyborg, such a quick starter, I think that is what leads to the number of, geez, this fight's not going to go the distance. Neither of these girls really go the distance. Raquel Pennington just almost went 5 with Amanda Nunes, and likewise, if Cyborg has that respect there, and I think she does have the respect there, I could see it going the distance. So, if that's not your forte, fight starts round 4, minus 127, you could do worse.
Yep.
So, I think we're on the same page there. The last point I want to throw in, we'll move on, is you mentioned the fact that Amanda Nunes, a lot of people are talking about maybe she could have an advantage if she decides to throw a wrench in the game plan and shoot that takedown. Just consider this for a second. Amanda Nunes is a striker full on. She comes from a Muay Thai background, and when you obviously watch her fight in mixed martial arts, she's a stand-up fighter. She wants to stay striking. Her whole camp, her whole style, stand up, throw punches. That tires her out. Do you think this same girl wrestling is not going to tire her out? That would tire her out twice as fast. Wrestling is just a different muscle. If you're a lifetime wrestler, then yeah, you can do that. But now you try striking for 15 minutes, it would gas you out. She's a striker. She can't get away from her game plan that's yielded all this success. You can't just all of a sudden say, hey, you know what? I'm going to wrestle this fight. I know I want a title striking, and I know I'm basically just a fairly one-dimensional striker. But I'm going to go up there and I'm going to take this girl down. I think that cast self-doubt in your own striking ability. And that self-doubt and the fact that she doesn't really have great cardio to begin with, I think it would throw her off. I think if they switched the game plan, it would fuck her up. And, if they don't switch the game plan, I think Cyborg wins anyways. If they do switch the game plan, I think Cyborg wins anyways. So that would be the play here.
We have Michael Chiesa taking on Carlos Condit. Michael Chiesa, 9,000 on DraftKings, minus 165 favorite. Carlos Condit, 7,200 plus 145. I'm not a Michael Chiesa guy. I don't think I respect the fact that he won the Ultimate Fighter that one year. I respect all of that type of stuff, and the guy's super strong when he gets you into that position, but he doesn't have the wrestling to actually get the fight where he wants to get it. Now, Carlos Condit, takedown defense, some of the worst that we've seen historically in MMA, and I don't think the guy has evolved all that much. He does look like he can get muscled around. We saw Cowboy Oliveira do the damn thing to him. So I think this is a relatively close fight. A striking advantage, obviously, toward Carlos Condit, but he does give up takedowns really easy, and he does try to just throw up triangles off of his back, and that's not going to work against Michael Chiesa. I see this one taking place on the feet, and I think Carlos Condit, more often than not, probably outpoints him there, maybe to the tune of 29-28, and gets a greasy decision. But this thing's going to be super close, in my opinion. What's your take?
Yeah, this fight really makes me feel like I have no balls because I should be betting Carlos Condit, who is all balls. Natural-born killer. Guy, you know what you're going to get every time, right? He's going to go for it. Unfortunately, you also know what you're going to get every time. You can't stop a takedown. Now, people will look at the Alex Oliveira fight and say, geez, he stuffed a couple there. Maybe if he doesn't get caught in that guillotine choke, he's on his way to beating Alex Oliveira. Yeah, Alex Oliveira beats himself. He's just so open with that style and so aggressive that he creates those issues. And I don't know that Chiesa is going to do the same thing. One thing I'm worried about Chiesa is, his best fights have been at 155. I mean, he's a career 55er because he's so damn big. But, botched weight cuts, and now he's coming up to 170. Everyone's relying on the fact that, yeah, he's stronger than Carlos Condit. His wrestling's not great, but you don't got to be a great wrestler to take Condit down. And he finds the back. He always finds the back. Don't want Condit. Condit always gives up the back. It's all there, but you also got to realize Condit, being the bigger man, if he's going to stuff takedowns, he'll have a better shot against a 55er. Mm-hmm. And I know Alex Oliveira is a 55er, but is he? And so I just feel like, yeah, the writing's there. I could see Condit stuffing a couple of these takedowns. The thing with Chiesa is, it's not that he's got no heart. It was probably the weight cut. Once he doesn't get things going his way, it kind of falls apart. And hey, dude, I think you're on the same boat, but we called that Pettis versus Chiesa fight, and that Pettis can't wrestle. So the narrative was very clearly Chiesa is going to take him down. But what's Chiesa going to do in those moments of the fight where the fight isn't on the ground, right? It's going to be standing at some points, and he's not a great wrestler, so you got to force the shot. When you're forcing the shot, you become predictable. A guy that cuts angles like Anthony Pettis, who's faster than you and a much more technical striker, he'll see those openings and it'll make you pay. And obviously the body kick's there. Chiesa kind of crumples up a little bit. And, it's kind of like, geez, Michael Chiesa maybe wasn't as good as we thought. But I do think the weight cut seriously hurt him. One of the big problems I'm having here with Carlos Condit, yeah, I know everybody's talking about the fact that he can't wrestle and his ground game's not all that great. He's got one foot out the door. And you and I talk about this all the time. Guys that are already thinking about retirement, you got to realize that Carlos Condit not only already retired, but he's probably about to retire a second time. He has that crazy fight with Robbie Lawler. Comes back from that fight, 7 months later, and got dismantled by Damian Maia like nothing. Then he retired. Now, keep in mind, Carlos Condit is a guy that maybe doesn't have great submission defense. Cast iron chin. He was seriously hurt by Damian Maia's ground and pound prior to giving up his back and getting tapped out. Idea of maybe his chin is starting to go, and he retires accordingly. He comes back 16 months later or something against Neil Magny and was effortlessly out-wrestled by Neil Magny. Then he comes back from that, almost jumps right back in 4 months later against Alex Oliveira. Didn't look bad and then gets choked out. So now this is a guy that retired on the strength of a 2-fight losing streak. And then has furthermore lost another 2 fights. If he loses this fight, that puts him on a 5-fight losing streak. He has not won a fight since he broke Thiago Alves's nose nearly 4 years ago. And you've retired once and then lost 2 more since coming out of retirement. That's fucking 1 foot out the door, dude. And how many times do you got to bet on somebody who loses and then tosses their gloves in the middle of the octagon and you're sitting there thinking, oh, shit, I wish I knew. This is a case where you do know. It's not Ryan LaFleur. I'm masking an injury. It's not one of these older guys, a Jim Miller type, where you never really. I think he'll have one more left in him, but you know what I mean. A guy that's like you see it there. This is Carlos Condit. We think of him as a natural-born killer, former title challenger, guy that kicked George St. Pierre in the head, guy that he'll be able to beat Chiesa. Chiesa's got no heart, and Carlos Condit's all hard. He's going to beat him. It's a stylistical matchup, and the style here is that Chiesa gets his fight to the ground at some point, whether it is clean wrestling or whether he just pushes you to the cage. Look at that back take on Beneil Dariush. You don't need a whole lot of time. Look at his fight with Jim Miller. He loses the first round, but eventually it's going to be a grappling exchange, and that's where Carlos Condit kind of falters. So as much as I want to bet him, and as much as I could see him having success by keeping the fight standing and being the better striker, I can't base it off all on that. So I got to go to Chiesa here. Am I a huge Chiesa fan? Yeah, maybe not, a little more than you are, but I just feel like honestly it's grappler who is moving up a weight class, but he's going to feel better, and he's still young, and he wants this, and he's coming off that last loss to Anthony Pettis, and in the middle of this McGregor lawsuit, he's got to kind of right the ship and get things going here. Whereas you got Carlos Condit, 4-fight losing streak. When was the last time he looked good? Against Alves, but he hasn't looked good in a while. Who'd he beat before that? Martin Kampmann. Come fucking on. Yeah. When was the last time Carlos Condit beat a guy that's relevant right now? Oh, yeah. Probably never, unless you consider Rory McDonald relevant in Bellator. So it's just like the time's passing by, man. I mean, it's a sad thing to see, but he's 34, and the way he's lived his life, and by that I mean 42 professional fights from when you were a kid, and in Japan, and then all over Albuquerque, and those smokers, and then in the WEC, and then the UFC. Like, it's sad to say, but I just think his time's passed. If they matched him up against another old-ass striker, another Thiago Alves, yeah, it'd be exciting. Him versus Robbie Lawler in a rematch. Fuck, I'd be into that. But him versus a guy that does have no intention of standing with him for a prolonged period of time, I don't want to see that. And this is what we got here. So the odds are close enough. I think Chiesa is a good play. I won't have him on everything, but I could see him going out there and scoring his value.
And we got Leo the Sledgehammer Latifi taking on Corey Anderson. Latifi 8,900 minus 150. Anderson 7,300 plus 130. Anderson has all of the intangibles for a sledgehammer smash here, but I'm still a little bit uneasy about this. It's a wrestler who's taller than Ilir Latifi. Good luck taking Ilir Latifi down. Like, the guy's just he's what, 5'8", 205 pounds of shredded muscle. Like, good luck getting your hips down low enough to take him down.
Yeah.
And
hey, by the way, he's 205 pounds of shredded muscle the day before the fight. It's the day of the fight. The guy's 225.
And Latifi, on top of that, what does, he'll just throw haymakers over the top. And we have Anderson, who's pretty chinny. Like, the problem is 8,900 on DraftKings. Like, I need that first round knockout, basically, because the other people up there, your John Joneses, Peter Yans, guys that we'll talk about in there, probably should be in high volume, high striking affairs. Corey Anderson may stay at distance, throw jabs, try not to let Latifi close the distance. And if Latifi doesn't land that big one, like, he's not gonna win a volume striking affair here. I love Latifi, but it's hard to get on board with the 8,900 on DraftKings. I'll tell you that much. And I am worried that he gets picked apart. Obviously, I'm picking Latifi here, but I'm not as confident as I thought I was about a week ago. How do you see this one shaking out?
Yeah, dude, I think we're on the same wavelength despite being in different rooms. I got Latifi winning to a certain extent, but I think I'm going to have to pass because I got a feeling Corey Anderson's coming in here to play spoiler. Again, it's very easy to look at the fact that Corey Anderson can't seemingly take a punch right from the get-go. John Vellante freezes him up on the cage. Shogun hurt him multiple times. Manoa and OSP, completely knock him out unconscious. But, he's not a striker. He doesn't really have any power. He's not a guy that's going to go out there and finish you by strikes. He's got that vaunted wrestling background. He's got great cardio. He's got decent footwork, decent speed. He just tries to outwork you. And he's starting to find his rhythm a little bit where it's like, I got to avoid those big shots, but I can outwork you. Whereas his opponent's almost like a complete opposite. Ilir Latifi, he's going to put you away. If he doesn't put you away, you're going to put him away. That's kind of the way to get this guy off of you. Jan Blachowicz with a body kick. Nobody saw that happening. And then Ryan Bader with that knee. Really, again, nobody saw that coming. But these guys aren't beating him by decision. You got to take him out or he's going to be on you. And that creates a hell of a problem for Corey Anderson because he doesn't have the gun power to physically get Latifi off him. I don't think he can knock him out. I don't really think he can even daze him enough to get Latifi to take a step back. So he's going to have Latifi on his ass. And Latifi on your ass, if you don't finish him, as far as recent results goes, it's a bad spot to be in. But, Latifi's actually 35 years old. Shocking, I know, because you see those pictures of him so majestic on a horseback or, pretty much any picture of his upper body. It's like, God damn. But I don't really know that this guy can go a hard 3. I think he can go 3. I think he beat Tyson Pedro. Yeah,
but he was able to take him down and fight the fight on his terms, right?
But that's exactly it. He was able to take Tyson Pedro down. In fact, he more or less, that was an even money fight. We were both on him heavy because we're like, Pedro can't really wrestle, and Latifi's a great wrestler. You don't always see it from Latifi because he's got the big one-punch power, but the guy's actually a very solid wrestler. And against Tyson Pedro, a guy that really, I don't know, how did he survive the 15 minutes? I don't know. It wasn't a great performance. The fight with OSP, he rocks him and then chokes him out. That's very pretty on paper. But I want to see back to that grinding affair. I want to see what happens. Corey Anderson has got a longer reach, way longer reach, and he's faster. So Latifi's going to wind up on these big hooks. And, if Anderson's smart enough to get out of the way, then I can see Latifi swinging at air. Anderson, just like you mentioned, using the jab. Jab's not going to knock this guy out, but it's going to rack up some points. And by the way, nobody's more comfortable in winning 15-minute fights than Corey Anderson. He's a 3-round decision, right? He's a decision machine, sorry. So if he just uses the jab and keeps the distance and has Latifi constantly charging in forward, one of two things happen. Thing number one, Latifi gets frustrated. He leaves himself open. You plant this guy in the fucking ass, right? Would it be hard for Latifi to get up? He's 5'8". He'd probably create enough space to get back up. But again, Anderson is one of these guys that will just ride you the whole time, take you right back down. Thing number two that happens is you look at Latifi now swinging these big punches and not having much success. Maybe he tires a little bit. If he tires a little bit, then Anderson is going to get him on the ground. And if Anderson can do all those things, then he's going to win the decision. The reason I kind of want to stay away is again, I think I got the underdog here in Corey Anderson, but his chin is so suspect, taking on a guy that you and I have made a killing off of over the years because, we know what he's got, and what he's got we love. He's hard to take down. He's a power wrestler. He's got a big, strong right hook, and he's got a good chin. Guys like that are going to win fights. But guys like that are going to get to a certain point in their career where they're going to take on better athletes, faster guys. And, again, maybe the big punch versus the guy that might be chinny, maybe that's enough. Maybe it is. But on a card that I've taken the first 3 favorites so far, yeah, we need a dog at some point. An 8,900 on Latifi. You're playing a GPP. He's a cheaper option. He's a cheaper option than both Cyborg and John Jones. And could he go out there and knock out Corey Anderson in the very first round? Absolutely, he could. But it's my bad gut feeling that it's too easy to predict. Wow, Latifi's just going to touch this guy and he'll crumple. So, what's not as easy to predict? Oh, Latifi doesn't land that shot. Corey Anderson outworks his ass. Beeson 25-8, overtime Anderson, it doesn't matter. There's a theme there. Knock this guy or he'll just keep working you and working you and working you. And with Latifi, at 35 and being that built for 5'8", carrying that much muscle, I bet you he don't want to go in no second or third round. And if that happens, then yeah, Anderson will score a decent amount on DraftKings because he's cheap and he can get those takedowns. But taking down a fire hydrant is not a great thing to bank your DK points on. So I'm kind of looking at it as a pass. Just because I don't want to be back in Anderson and then see him get crumpled in a minute, get laughed at, which is a possibility. But he could also go out there and outwork him, and that's what my gut's telling me. So in my head, I think I'm going to take Anderson. But as far as the fight goes, I think I'll just pass.
So next fight is my favorite fight on the card. By a long shot. We have Chad Mendes taking on Alexander the Great of Volkanovski. Mendes 8,700 minus 160. Volkanovski 7,500 and plus 140. Volkanovski has been a DraftKings superstar since he came into the organization, and every single fight, this guy is in line for 130, 140. Like, he can break the slate any week, but like every other fight, he wasn't taking on a top flight collegiate wrestler from a great camp who's been doing this game so much longer than him. The one question that we do have with Mendes is he's taking some damage. Frankie Edgar was able to knock him out, so maybe Volkanovski's able to do that. If we see Volkanovski go out there drag this fight to the canvas, land that vicious ground and pound that he's been doing to everybody recently. He doesn't really quite have the finishing first round power, but he just lays it on you so thick. If he's able to do that to Chad Mendes, he can do that to anybody, I think, at this point. And like Max Holloway better watch out. But this is obviously a tough stylistic matchup for him. We're going to be able to see what Volkanovski has and how deep he can go in this game. I'm not jumping off the train. I'm not afraid of Chad Mendes knocking out Volkanovski. He looks like he has a pretty decent chin himself. This may end up on the feet, but I think the pressure game that Volkanovski puts on you is just so relentless that I don't know if, and we've seen him be able to do it for 3 rounds, full on, constant, against the likes of Darren the Damage Elkins, who just never tires. Just, you know who else didn't tire in that fight? Is Volkanovski, from just pounding and pounding and pounding and pounding. I don't know if Mendes can keep up with that pace. So I'm sure early on in the fight, Volkanovski's going to, he's going to fail. He's not going to be able to take him down. But as this thing goes deeper, I wouldn't be surprised if he starts to take over. So I'm taking Volkanovski. I like taking these guys that are just absolute DraftKings machines. When you get underdog pricing, when you have $7,500 for Volkanovski, it's like he could potentially, if this is a high volume, high action fight, he could potentially pay off his value and not even win the fight. Like, that's the type of style that he brings to the table. So give me Volkanovski at 7,500 on DraftKings. I won't be making a bet at plus 140 because I do have my questions, though.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna take the roll on him. I mean, again, this is a card that I do like a number of the favorites on the card, and Alexander Volkanovski is a guy that's a great shot here. You're gonna get plus money on him, and he's very well priced as far as DraftKings goes. Yeah, the uncertainty there is that a lot of people are saying, well, we just don't know enough about Alexander Volkanovski. I mean, going 3 rounds against Shane Young, beating Jeremy Kennedy, Darren Elkins, well, he's a punching bag. You nailed it, dude. The guy does not get tired. Jeremy Kennedy, by the way, never lost before, and also never finished before, clearly never lost. And he completely ragdolled this guy pillar to post. Well, dude, Darren Elkins, you can't finish this guy. He's so damn durable. He'll get tired trying. Nope, never got tired. He just seems to keep going and going and going. We talked about last week, or we talked about a couple weeks ago about how just the whole gym's got a great feel right now. And yeah, you know what? We talked about Dan Hooker potentially being a little overhyped, and maybe he was. And Adesanya, maybe the guy's a little overhyped. Kid Car France, maybe it's a hype job. Volkanovski suffers from the same thing. People love the camp right now. People love these New Zealand fighters. Maybe he's a little bit of the hype, but yeah, I'm buying into the hype. I think this guy's my kind of fighter. Again, short, stocky, power wrestler. Seems to have cardio for days. Chin checks out. Lost early in his career by 3rd round TKO. Probably the best thing that ever happened to him. He got tired in that fight. Now his strength and conditioning is a lot better. He doesn't seem to fatigue. And when you can put that kind of offense on a guy and just never stop just pounding away, that's something special. Here's the thing with Chad Mendes. I think this is the real kicker here. Chad Mendes is the favorite because no one really wants to go against him. I mean, he is Chad Mendes. The guy gave Jose Aldo all he could handle in that second fight. The guy was beating Conor McGregor for the first round before he tired at short notice. People like Chad Mendes. Yeah, he lost to Frankie, but he looked so good in his return against Miles Jury after his USADA test. People all of a sudden think he's back. That's the issue. I think we're talking about Alex Volkanovski being the hype job. It's not that Chad Mendes is the hype job. He's proven everything. He's worth his weight in gold in the sense that this guy has major accomplishments. And this man has not seen round 3 of a fight in 5 years. Since the second Jose Aldo fight, UFC 179. He beat Lamas in the first round. He got TKO by Conor in the second. He lost to Frankie in the first. He beat Miles in the first. I don't think this guy's cardio is going to check out. And I know you could point back to the McGregor fight in that he got really gassed after 1 round, but hey, it was short notice. But how's about this? The guy's off for 2 years, okay? 2 years because of that USADA suspension. In fact, it's over 2 years by the time he physically gets into the ring, like 2.5. And he fights Miles Jury. I bet you if that fight got gone 2 or 3 rounds, I think he would have been tired. How could you not be? That's a ring rust. It's a lot of rust you got to shake off. Thing is, Miles Jury can't really wrestle, and well, Chad Mendes takes him down and he pounds him out, and it's a clean victory. It looks good. Everyone's jumping up saying, "Yo, he's back." He's 33 years old. He had a quick first round finish. I don't know that he can go 2 and 3 rounds. I mean, traditionally, his fight with McGregor, yeah, not only did he gas hard, when he gasses, he becomes very prone to damage. His hands drop. He stands in one spot. He can't fake level changes. He's got no footwork. He can't move. And above all else, he does not move his head. So Volkanovski is not exactly like you say. He's not a big one-punch power guy. he's not a take you in the very first round kind of guy. But after a competitive first round of this guy coming at you, and you being the alpha male that you are, you're coming back at him, it's going to tire one of you. Not the guy that's got 2-3 fights this year, who's been in an absolute roll, who's training hard and has no injuries. It's going to be the guy that was hunting for 2 years in Boise, Idaho, and and not taking his supplements anymore, and then gets back into a camp, happens to beat Miles Jury, good little win for you, and now to think he's all the way back, I don't see it. I truly believe when he lost to Frankie, that might have been the end of him at an elite level, because Frankie is an elite level. The guy's obviously not shot. I don't think his chin's gone, even though he had just lost back-to-back fights by TKO. I just honestly think that he's 31, and now the grind at the highest level has been there, and they figured him out. That style, that being that short little power wrestler with big right hand, that alpha male, prototypical style, it wasn't yielding any results, right? The only guy out of that gym that's looked good in the last number of years really is TJ Dillashaw. He left in order to add those improvements. Mendes never did. He's still the same guy. Alpha male still doesn't have a striking coach. Alpha male is still the stock wrestlers that they were before. So that it's got to be that next generation guy that's going to come along and just show you, hey, this is how the game's evolving. Jury's young, but he's not that next generational guy. Volkanovski's actually 30, but he is. He represents that. This is young lion versus old lion. Both guys kind of match up similarly. I give the striking advantage to Chad Mendes based on just technicality. I think he's a little sharper, but he doesn't have as much power. He doesn't have the kind of shield that's going to be required to go, shot for shot with Volkanovski. And I think that once he tires in probably somewhere mid-second round, and he becomes a lot more prone and he stands there, he doesn't have the durability of Elkins. He won't take that damage the way Elkins did. He'll fold up and he'll get finished. So give me Volkanovski. I think the DraftKings pricing is fantastic. I think plus money, he's the underdog, right? If this is dog or pass, I'm taking the dog here. And I think that this is either his coming out party and he's going to fight Max next, or shit, kid, maybe you weren't as good as we all thought, and a couple more fights and you can get back to an elite level. But this is almost a last hurrah for Chad Mendes. If he gets blown out of the water, not that he's done. Again, it's just he's not at that elite level anymore. Whereas Volkanovski has still got some room to grow. He's still got some room to make some mistakes here and there. But I think he's going to get the win, and I'll take him for that dog status.
We have Walt Harris taking on Andrei Arlovski. Walt Harris, 8,600 minus 170 favorite. Andrei Arlovski is 7,600 plus 150. Walt Harris has about a 7-minute window here. He's got to land a big punch. But we say this about every single Andrei Arlovski fight. The chin is gone. The guy's been through all of the wars of the heavyweight division, but he's seen everything that Walt Harris has to offer. I mean, these are the types of guys that Arlovski continues his career against. Like, he's able to get past these guys. He's seen all of their tricks. He doesn't let the big one get landed on him. And then for all of Andrei Arlovski's faults, his cardio is great. He knows how to slow down the fight. I see, round one could get a little bit dicey. Maybe something lands, but I see Andrei Arlovski as time goes on, even though he's going up against a slightly bigger opponent here in Walt Harris, who's pretty much at the top of the heavyweight limit here. He probably comes in at like 260, 265, somewhere around there. I see Andrei Arlovski forcing this up against the cage, making it ugly, slowing down the pace of the fight. This is going to be a good washroom break for anybody watching, because I just see Arlovski, he's just too crafty. I see him pulling out a really, really ugly, greasy decision, but we've seen this story so many times, and I don't think Walt Harris is anything special. So give me the underdog. Andrei Arlovski, not one that I really want to play on DraftKings, because even in a win, I see a 55, 65 points type of performance, and that probably doesn't get it done for you in large scale GPPs. What's your take?
Yeah. So I hear you. And whereas we talked about in that Ilya Latifi Corey Anderson fight, I mentioned the fact that you don't want to just take the guy with the big power over the guy who's traditionally kind of tinny. And that's why I was going Corey Anderson. God, I think I'm going to go the other way here. Andrei Arlovski has gone to decision in his last 5 fights. Something's about to give, Paul. That don't happen with Andrei Arlovski. Andrei Arlovski's got as many pro losses as Walt Harris has fucking pro fights. This this is going to be tough for old Andre. And when Andre fights power punchers, pure power punchers, he doesn't really tend to have that much success. Now, I know what you're saying. Against this level of opposition, he's kind of been able to turn a page. Junior Albini, well, he's a power puncher, isn't he? But it turns out he's actually real shit. Stefan Struve, well, not a power puncher and also just couldn't wrestle. Tai Tuivasa is a power puncher, and Andrei Arlovski showed something there. But you know what he showed there is that old Andre got no power anymore. Like, he's a small heavyweight. I think he floats around at, 245? And he just can't really seem to get these guys' attention. He can appoint them. He appointed Albini. He appointed Stefan Struve. He landed some shots on Tai Tuivasa and Shamil Abdurakhimov, none of which really seem to get their attention a whole lot. He's one of these guys now that he's becoming prototypical. He's not a great striker. He's not a great grappler. He's not a great wrestler. What he can do is he's agile for a heavyweight, again, only 245, and he can kind of outwork you. We always talk about how bad his chin is, but you look at his last 5 fights, he's been chin-checked a couple times, and, he lifts to tell the tale. But also those times that he actually gets hit, Tybura, Tuivasa, Abdurakhimov, the guy's cardio ain't what it used to be. He tends to tire a lot quicker now. He doesn't really he's a one-punch guy. He's not really a combo puncher. He's not going to go throw 2-3. He just kind of waits for that one punch. His jab was working against Tai Tuivasa, but again, it's just a one-and-done strike. One-and-done strike can work for you at heavyweight because there's not a whole lot of strikes coming back. But Walt Harris is very one-dimensional in the fact that he wings big hellacious shots, whereas Arlovski is generally the faster guy because he's only 245. Harris is kind of a quick guy for heavyweight as well. He's only 253, but former basketball player collegiately. He's a great athlete. He cuts the distance really quick. And I think when you look at his record, let's not talk about his fight with Abdurakhimov because that will surely not make you want to put any wager on him. But, Chase Sherman, maybe there's a suspect chin there, but he'll stand in front of you and dust him. Sorry, Alaska dust him. The Fabricio Verdum fight, shit, man. He took that fight on like a day's notice, and it's Fabricio Verdum, and, he got armbarred in the first round. But his next fight against Godbeer, he smoked him, and it was an illegal kick to the face that should have knocked out Godbeer that got him DQ'd, and then he wins his next fight against Daniel Speed. The problem here is that when you look at his record, his wins,
he's beating literally the bottom of the barrel.
Daniel Spitz, Mark Godbeer, Cyril Asker, and Chase Sherman. God damn, that's no good. He's also 35 years old, so you can't make the argument that they're building him up slowly. No. They tried to push him in the deep end against Verdum, and he lasted a minute. So what can you do? But this is the kind of fight where it's like, well, what can you do? You can give him a nearly 40-year-old Arlovski that's lost his last 2, doesn't have the power to hurt Walt Harris, and for the most part, he moves his head a little more than the average guy, but he will stand in front of you relatively. So what I do see is I think that Andrei Arlovski is going to come out here. Maybe he's got some face in his chin, and he's going to get clipped by Walt Harris. He's going to get clipped. He'll get put down, and I think Walt Harris pounds him out. Now, again, this is not a play that I'm huge on, but it's a good price on Walt Harris just because he's been fighting low-level guys, and Arlovski's kind of been looking okay in spots here and there. But this has got all the makings of a classic Andrei Arlovski fighting a guy that he should beat that just clips him one single time. And, again, the reason why I think Walt Harris will be able to do it and some of those other guys haven't, because, hey, if Tai Tuivasa can't knock you out, then how the hell is Walt Harris going to do it? Yeah, I hear you, but I think Walt's going to be a little more snappy, a little more sharper. And the other fights with Arlovski, Abdurakhimov, Stefan Struve, Junior Albini, Marcin Tybura, none of those guys are explode on you with that one big punch. The guys that did do that on him, Stipe, Overeem, Ngannou, all better fighters than Walt Harris. But as far as pure athleticism and one single punch goes, he can do that. He just can't do that for a sustained period of time. Those guys can't. That's why they're world champions or former world champions, and he's a putz. But, that explosion that one single time on a guy like Andrei Arlovski, that could be big. And again, I always make one final point. If any of the viewers could give me a shout out on Twitter, just let me know. But Walt Harris has been with ATT his entire career, more or less. And Andrei Arlovski's only looked decent the last couple of years because he switched to ATT. So I'm sure they're both not currently at ATT. I'd like to know which one moved. But if you're Walt Harris, if Andrei Arlovski's the one at ATT, they know your secrets. But if you're Andrei Arlovski and you're not there, fuck, they know Andre's secret. So that was an interesting one to me. I'm going to take Walt Harris for the time being. Don't love it, but it's middling heavyweights. And Paul, you and I both know a thing or two about middling heavyweights.
Andrei Arlovski beats middling heavyweights.
That's true. But Walt Harris beats, not even middling. That's
no, like guys that should be cut.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So you got.
Well, you know what? I remember Andrei Arlovski, former UFC champion, prime of his career, taking on Brett Rogers in Strikeforce. And all it took was a big, imposing man to take 2 steps forward and hit you a couple times, and you're going to go down. You're heavyweights, right? We always call them chinny, but at heavyweights, like, we're all chinny, man. Guy that size hits you, you're going to go down. But 4-year-old Andre Arlovski not moving, cardio's not really what it used to be. So if Walt Harris does get tired, Arlovski's going to get tired too. And that's just going to make it a slugfest. And I'm going to favor Walt Harris in the slugfest. So, yeah, I don't love it, man. But give me the big ticket, Walt Harris.
Kat Zingano, 8,500, minus 145. Megan Anderson, 7,700, and plus 125. Who you got?
Yeah, you know what? This is an interesting one for me personally. My gut tells me to go with Megan Anderson. She's a natural 45er. She's actually a really big gal. She's a better striker than Kat Zingano. And Zingano getting a little older, getting a little slower. If this ends up being a gunfight, you're going to want the bigger, larger, actual 145-pounder. That same gut, Paul, and it's getting bigger these days, especially around Christmas time, that same gut is telling me don't bet anybody who can't wrestle to the level of Megan Anderson. Issue, and Kat Zingano's not stupid. She's going to try to exploit it, and that's a problem. I think with Megan Anderson, there's a girl that's never done anything notable in her entire MMA career. That is going to sound very harsh, but prior to fighting Holly Holm, there was not one notable. I wouldn't say she was UFC caliber. I wouldn't say she's a standout. I wouldn't even say she's a prospect. There's nothing that can be seen there. She takes the Holly Holm fight, 1.5 years off the sidelines. You and I, we're on Holly Holm. I think a lot of the smart public was on Holly Holm, yet Megan Anderson is still a plus 130, like close, like even. And now we all realize she can't wrestle. We all realize that maybe that bloated record she made in Invicta really wasn't that impressive. You're beating Charmaine Tweet and Peggy Morgan, Amanda Bell. Come on, lost to Cindy Dandois, buddy.
Yeah.
But yeah, we bought into her. We bought into her because she was an actual 45er. She was. I don't know why Dana White ever used the words Megan Anderson and Cyborg in the same sentence. It made no sense, but people got into it. Well, she's actually a 45er. Let's see her fight a real 45er. Oh, this girl's smoking girls in Invicta. She's the Invicta champ. Invicta champ versus UFC champ. People really got behind her, and I didn't see it. I really didn't see it. And I'm still not seeing it. I mean, she got largely exposed. She had a good minute and 2 minutes against Holly Holm, being that, yeah, this girl is big. And she's a brute. She's not a technical striker. She's a brute. When you have that kind of size, you can do that. Versus Kat Zingano, is it possible that if this fight stays standing, she's going to use that side and she's going to outpoint her and she maybe hurts this girl a little bit? Yeah, definitely potential. But the one thing with Kat Zingano is if your game plan is hurt this girl with my striking, it's like, yeah, this girl's been there before, man. She can take absolute licking, both in her personal life and her fighting career. I mean, I don't want to bank on the fact that, you know, we're thinking she's chinny or anything and Megan Anderson's going to knock her out. So what's more likely? That the fight will hit the ground at some point. If it does hit the ground, I want high-level black belt Kat Zingano, been a black belt for almost a decade, on top of Megan Anderson. I have no way to get back up to my feet against Holly Holm, who's not a black belt. So if the fight hits the ground, it's Zingano all day. I think a lot of the rhetoric is, well, Megan Anderson's big, man. She's an actual 45er. Put it this way, Megan Anderson just recently had a quote where she's calling out the girls from the recent season of The Ultimate Fighter because they were at 145 and they all want to come down to 135. And she's like, wow, what's this? Everybody wants to drop down. That's who she's scouting. She's scouting girls on The Ultimate Fighter and calling them out.
Get me some
because
wins.
That's the level she's at. Yes. Now, the one I would be way more into Kat Zingano if it wasn't for the fact that 36, bad knees. Knee injuries have really plagued her over the past. She got the win over Marion Renault, who really doesn't look all that bad. The loss to Caitlin Vieira, it was a 2-year-long layoff nearly, so I give her the benefit of the doubt. I think we should get a better version of her here. I think at some point, she's got really sneaky trips. We all remember the Amanda Nunes fight. You know, her judo kind of checked out there. If she can get Megan Anderson on the ground, she's going to get her. I think she will. Getting her to the ground is going to be an issue because she's that much bigger than you, and I'm not really sure what your wrestling's like. But again, that willingness to engage, that ability to take Megan Anderson's best shot and come forward. Megan Anderson's one-trick pony. She knows she can knock you out, but she knows she can't wrestle. She knows she can't grapple, and her cardio is not great. She's got that power because she's got that size. Zingano's not the right opponent to be relying solely based on your power. You got to out-wrestle this girl. You got to out-grind this girl. You got to outlast this girl. Juliana Pena, she could do it. Ronda Rousey caught her real early, whatever. Caitlin Vieira was a close enough fight. Megan Anderson is not any of those three girls that were named. In fact, Marion Renault is better all around than Megan Anderson. Anderson would have the size over her, but I'm not impressed. I'm not impressed, and I got to go Kat Zingano.
We got Peter Yan taking on Douglas Silva de Andrade. Peter Yan is 9,300 and a minus 300 favorite. Douglas Silva de Andrade is 6,900 and plus 250. I see this one just being a barn burner. I don't agree with I don't like the odds that are set here, minus 300, plus 250. Like, I don't think Douglas Andrade is. He's not lost in this thing. I think he's going to pressure forward, and Jan's going to be there too. Like, I see a high volume scrap here. So Jan is kind of a guy, along with Jones, that I'm more apt to pay up for on this slate. I think it's a little bit closer than the odds indicate, but Andrade, he's 25-2. He got submitted by Rob Font. That is his lone UFC loss. And Peter Yan didn't look great in his last fight out against the Korean guy. But I think this is kind of a style clash right here, and Jan's going to be the one with a little bit higher volume. What's your take?
Yeah, Jan's my guy. Don't bet against Jan. I ain't going to bet against Jan here. But I'm also not going to go heavy onto Jan. Price definitely out of proportion. I don't love it. And this one gives me a bit of a weird feeling. The thing with Peter Yan is, as entertaining as he is and as promising as a prospect as he certainly looks to be, former ACB champ, 25 years old, he's extremely hittable. Like, he takes damage in his fights. And whereas that's okay, who cares if Trudeau Ishihara hits you a couple times? You got this guy beat everywhere. Jinsu Sun, those guys coming in on short notice. He was actually replacing Douglas de Andrade and went the distance, landed some shots in the mix. Now he gets Andrade, and whereas I think he's a better fighter than Andrade is just a bruiser. Sometimes these one-dimensional Brazilian bruisers, they're going to make you pay if you're the type to stand in front of them and take damage. I mean, just look a couple fights back, weeks back, I should say, the Jared Gordon versus Joaquin Silva fight.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a fight I love Jared Gordon in. I love the fact that Jared Gordon can out-wrestle this guy. Jared Gordon's better on the ground than this guy. His cardio seemingly is better than this guy. But one thing about Jared Gordon, he's extremely hittable. So you stand in front of a guy that just winging bombs at you, and they're landing because you have poor striking defense. They're going to land. More shots like that land.
In fairness to Gordon, though, he scored like 91 points in that spot.
Well, Gordon,
in a loss, he scored 91 points. Jared Gordon did not kill your DraftKings teams that week, that's for sure.
No, but Jared Gordon also scored 52 points in the very first round. Mm-hmm. And then he didn't get tired. It was the damage started to pile up, mainly the body shots, but that was round 3. But it's just those shots, like getting rocked at the end of the first round. Now all of a sudden it's like, well, you're not tired. It's like, no, you're not tired. You fucking hurt. And you're having adrenaline dump. And now you're moving slower. And now you're moving slower against a guy that's winding up on you. The thing with Peter Yan is you go back to his ACB, his last loss, I guess I should say, with Magomedov. That's a fight of the year. One of the best fights I've ever seen. But he takes a tremendous amount of damage. Now he's a young guy. He's going to rebound. He rebounds. And not only that, he ends up beating him in the rematch. Good fight. Makes his UFC debut. He's looked flawless. He's looked flawless against Asian opposition that really isn't up to snuff with him. I mean, you look at the fact that, and we see this all the time, makes his UFC debut, he's a minus 585 over Ishihara. His last fight, he's a minus 1250. This fight, he's coming in at minus 300, and it's only going to get bigger from there. It's like people got a lot of faith in this guy. The issue is that, again, he is hittable. And against de Andrade, 25-2, man. Great record. Yeah, lost 2 fights, both in the UFC. Tuhugov's a tough guy. No shame losing to him. And getting caught by Rob Font's a little weird, but, by submission, getting caught by him by a punch wouldn't be a big deal, I guess. But again, it's like, can this guy get exposed ever so slightly? Yeah, someone's going to do it. Is Douglas Andrade the guy to do it? I'm going to say no. But he does have that style that I think the guy that is going to do it is going to do the same thing. Invite him in to have a fight and just bomb on him, Like, I know this is apples and oranges, but John Lineker would eat Peter Yan for fucking breakfast. And Douglas Andrade is a poor man's John Lineker, but the style is there. And I don't know if he's the guy to physically put it all together, but I could see Peter Yan getting sucked into a firefight and getting banged up. The guy cuts relatively easy. He swells relatively easy. If the judges are just looking at damage, it doesn't matter if he took down Andrade a couple times and, landed a couple flashy strikes. If Andrade is landing those big, meaningful hooks and damaging your face and it goes to decision, and your last fight against a guy that was way overmatched did go to decision, this one could very well also go to decision. It would be interesting. It's a big price tag for Peter Yan. A lot better of a price than obviously you've got him in his last couple fights. But for a guy that's, young and a high potential prospect and Russian, you know me, I'm all over these guys. But just, again, I call it a gut feeling, call it something. But I think there's better favorites on the card I trust more.
We have Ryan Hall taking on BJ Penn. Ryan Hall, 9,400 on DraftKings, minus 475 favorite. BJ Penn, 6,800 plus 380. This is literally the perfect stylistic matchup for BJ Penn to get a win. And yet,
I don't think
he's a plus 400 underdog. It's just like you need somebody who doesn't really have very much power. Ryan Hall checks that box. He doesn't really have much of a striking game, really. But he's able to at least... Yeah, he's able to like wing some kicks from distance, maintain range, and then when he gets to the ground, he's super, super crafty. But BJ Penn, that's probably the last thing to leave. Like maybe he can hold his own down there. It's just basically like BJ Penn should have retired. I was there live at the
fight,
the Ultimate Fighter finale.
The
day that BJ Penn died. I refer to
asked for it.
Yeah. I refer to it as the day that BJ Penn officially died, and yet here we are. He's fighting again. Like, you can't get on board with this. I just don't know. Is like Ryan Hall the guy that you smash into your lineups this week? I'm going to say no, because he's going to have to really get a hold of him and grab a submission super, super fast. And BJ Penn's no slouch when it comes to that. I know that Ryan Hall is obviously a lot more refined and developed and crafty with his approach in BJJ, but if this just turns into a tepid striking affair that BJ Penn is not really landing anything, eating some kicks, but there's a lot of distance between the two of them, like this could be a stay away. But how dead is BJ Penn? I don't know. It's I think it's a fight I'm staying away from altogether. I'm definitely not touching BJ Penn. How can you trust him at this point?
No, you can't trust him. You can't trust him at all. That's dude. It's a sad day when you start picking Ryan Hall over BJ Penn. Not only that, it's a very, very sad. Like, listen, dude, this is Ryan Hall versus BJ Penn at the IBJFF final. Yeah, I'd be in. I could see Ryan Hall beating him in a straight grappling match. This is a sad day because I'm picking Ryan Hall to beat BJ Penn in a striking match. That's the very sad part to me here. I don't see him submitting BJ. He could submit Artem Lobov. He was on Artem Lobov's back for 10 minutes. He can submit him. He can submit Gray Maynard, although that was just the wonkiest fight of all time. He's got that, when he was on the Ultimate Fighter, he had that heel hook, right? He dropped down the heel hook. Well, I'm sorry to break it to you, but, Misha Tate's baby daddy, Johnny Nunes, and Frank Sloa, they're not BJ Penn. They're not going to defend those heel hooks. BJ will. He's not going to get submitted. The problem here is that I see it being a lot like Gray Maynard versus Ryan Hall, which is just the worst fight of all time. But the problem there is that Gray's a way better wrestler than Ryan Hall. Ryan Hall couldn't take down Gray Maynard in his wildest dreams. So he has to formulate a game plan on the fight never hitting the ground. So how does a one-dimensional BJJ wizard defeat Gray Maynard if the fight's never going to hit the ground? Well, Gray's slow, and he's plodding, and I'm just going to kick him and move, kick him and move, kick him and move. He's too slow to track me down, and he stands in one spot. So I'll just kick him and move, kick him and move. And sadly, that exact same game plan would work to a T against BJ Penn. BJ Penn is too slow on his feet. There's not enough movement. He's not going to be able to cut off the angle and trap Ryan Hall. Even if he was to trap Ryan Hall against the cage, that's not his style. He's not going to hold him there. And what's he going to do? Take him down? His wrestling's not great. But even if he did take him down, then we're just in a neutral position. BJ Penn's not a neutral position kind of guy. He's an OG. He's an action fighter. He seeks the kill. He goes for it. The last time I remember watching BJ Penn and thinking, damn, BJ Penn actually looks good, it was probably his fight with John Fitch. The thing in the John Fitch fight is that he gassed tremendously fast in trying to employ that wrestling-based style and took such a shit kicking in the third round. It was a 10-8 that the fight ended up being a draw. That was the last time he had a positive result because he had lost his next 5 fights after that. And that was the moment that you realized BJ doesn't have the cardio to have a grinding style fight, so he needs to be finesse BJ. Finesse BJ ain't going to work against Nick Diaz, Roy McDonald, Frank Yeager, Yair Rodriguez, but it should work against Dennis Siver. Right? Wrong. Finesse BJ is not a thing anymore. As we all saw, namely from the fight you sadly had to attend live, him versus Frankie, his footwork's fucked, man, and his punches are super slow. He's got no reaction time. It's like watching a slightly more athletic version of Chuck Liddell in his last fight. His reaction time is so short that you could punch him square in the face, and then almost like a second later, he goes to parry it. Like, it's sad, man. It's a sad sight. Now, I think the UFC did the right thing. Give him Ryan Hall. Ryan Hall is the only guy that can't knock out an opponent. So we don't want BJ taking any damage. Give him Ryan Hall. You know, I heard a lot of people say, pick Gray Maynard over Ryan Hall because Gray Maynard can't take a punch, but Ryan Hall can't give a punch. It has nothing to do with the chin. It has everything to do with the years of the weight cutting and the years of the partying. People don't realize that Gray Maynard lived in Vegas for 10 years, man, at the height of his career. The guy partied hard. BJ Penn, fuck, man, the guy partied hard. That and the training and the fights, and it's no disrespect. Guy's a legend. First ballot Hall of Famer, obviously. Everybody loves BJ Penn. But I made a video on YouTube, shockingly has not been taken down yet, despite all the glaring copyright infringements. But if you just punch in my name, I'm sure I have like a channel, you can watch it. And it's like the fall of BJ Penn. And the video gets so sad, I never even put in the Seaver fight. And now we're coming off another one. It's not getting better, Paul. Watch the video and it illustrates, here's him at the top of his career 10 years ago. And it has all been downhill everything. And now we're giving him worse and worse opponents. Oh, fight Seaver. You can beat him. Wrong. Oh, well, fight Ryan Hall. You can fight him. Wrong. BJ Penn's issue, and no one can fix it. He can't fix it. We can't fix it. Dana White can't fix it. He's a fighter, man. This is what he does. You think he's that happy sitting at home? No, he's drinking wings at home. He needs to be in training camp. He needs to fight somebody. And you know what? Chuck was the same way. These guys, this is what they do, man. You can't get in their way and say no, but it's really fucking sad having to sit there and watch it. And this is a guy that is a Hall of Famer and is a former champion, and he's curtain jerking prelims with Ryan Hall. Like, God damn, you couldn't even be the featured prelim, you know? Like, nope, Walt Harris and Andre Arlovsky is apparently a lot more riveting than your fight, Peach. It's really tough to see. I don't love it. But I can't be the dummy that says, I was the dummy that took Chuck Liddell thinking maybe he's not that shot. Turns out he was all the way shot. I've seen BJ. Yeah, way more shot. But it'd been 8 years, right? So you kind of think, well, I haven't seen him in 8 years. But with BJ, you can see him just getting more roughed up, him getting slower, that whole little style that he, when he fought Frankie, with him just being on his tiptoes. And then to hear, this is a real big issue for me when I think I'd never bet money on BJ Penn, and not just a sad case, but leading up to that fight, right? Mike Dolce was in that camp. Nick Lentz was in that camp. They brought guys into that camp. Everybody was talking about how BJ's smoking everybody. The Vonovich brothers, his strength and conditioning coaches. He had the Mendes brothers for his jiu-jitsu. They're on record saying this guy could go win a world title in Brazilian jiu-jitsu right now. He's so good. And he's got an open guard against Frankie. He never moves his hips. He gets fucking slaughtered on the ground as ground and pound. His stand-up's the worst we've ever seen. And then Nick Lentz goes on record. And he's like, yeah, BJ's a joke and a fraud. And basically we were all told in camp, they're all yes men. Because BJ's BJ and he's got money. And the people surround him. It's the same thing with Chuck. Chuck's got Antonio McKee, my boy, and his kid, Antonio McKee Jr., kind of half my boy. Those guys are telling him to his face, damn, Chuck, you look great. They're doing interviews where they're saying, damn, Chuck looks as good as he ever has. It's a bold-faced lie. And then this motherfucker is the guy that believes it at the end of the day. And he's got to go in there, and he realizes real quick, I ain't ready for this shit. Now, it's sad to me that this fight with Ryan Hall likely won't even hit the ground. The Hall's too fast. He'll just kick him from range. And the only way that this doesn't go Hall's way is I think there's a big respect factor there. And that's why I wouldn't bet Hall on DraftKings. If I thought Hall would go kick him 100 times, yeah, I'd probably take a little bit of a feeler play, maybe on some lineups. But I think there's a respect factor that when he sees BJ one eye swollen shut, if it gets to that point, if he sees BJ tired, if he sees BJ hurt, if he sees BJ broken down, he's not going to dive on the opportunity. They'll just go through the motions. Ryan Hall is brilliant. You ever had a conversation with the guy? He's so smart. He's so in tune. He took 2 years off, not because of injuries, because he's like, I don't really want to fight these guys. I can't really beat any of these guys. And they're all big bruisers on steroids. I'm not big. I'm not a bruiser. I'm not on steroids. I don't really want to fight. They offer him the BJ fight, and he jumps on it. He knows what he's getting himself into. He knows how he's going to beat this guy. And sadly enough, I think he is going to beat this guy. But the only play here for me personally would be Ryan Hall by decision, and I wouldn't play him on DraftKings.
We have Nathaniel Wood taking on Andre Ewell. Nathaniel Wood, 8,200 DraftKings to minus 110 across the board. Andre Ewell is 8,000 on DraftKings. Two guys that I had earmarked as future fades after the last performances. Nathaniel Wood, don't get fooled by that second round submission win. The only thing that I was so triggered because I had Eduardo. I had him on all my lineups. Round one, I'm just like, I called it to a T. I'm like, yeah, the Muay Thai instructor for Nova Uniao was just piecing him up. It couldn't be perfect. I'm already like taking my victory lap. And then what only could possibly be described as Johnny Eduardo had bet Nathaniel Wood in round two. Like he goes for a takedown, immediately gets submitted. It was embarrassing. It was the worst, and it was painful. And then Ewell, on the other hand, like he goes out there. The line was super tight. Me and you were a little bit fooled by how bad is Barao at this point? How done is he done? Or how done is he done?
Fighters, yeah.
He is beyond done at this point. So he goes out there. He wins very cleanly against Renan Barao. But like Renan Barao is so shot that I didn't really take much away from it. I thought that both of these guys would kind of be propped up. They match them against each other to give me a pick. I'm like, I don't know where to go with this one, to be perfectly honest. Nathaniel Wood is obviously extremely hittable. Andre Ewell likes to get the fight to the ground when he does. He has like decent submissions, I suppose, but I have a really tough time picking a winner. But I think this is a fight that you probably want to target because both of these guys do like search for those finishes and they look for them fast. Nathaniel Wood's fights are always super, super high volume. So we may have to pick a winner here, and hopefully you've got a better read on this one than I do.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I think this is a very evenly matched fight. Obviously, odds are going to indicate that. And I'm going to go with Nathaniel Wood. Yeah, you know what? You look at both their fights and you think, geez, they both got the wins. But I think depending on the opponent, I'm going to look to fade them in the future. And unfortunately, they pair each other. So you can only really fade one of them. My thing with Andre Ewell is that even dating back to his time before ever coming onto to the UFC, he seems to lack submission defense. He fought a guy that I'm very familiar with, Patrick Mix, New York guy, and he got dusted in 2.5 minutes or something in the first round. That fight was about 1 year ago. So Patrick Mix, who's a kid, man, got a great amateur record. That's mostly where I know him from. But Patrick Mix dices you in less than 3 minutes, and that's a year ago. So then he beats putzes, man. Hugo Flores, Trent Moe, Dennis Pava to a certain extent. He was brought in to the UFC to do a job, one specific job. He was not a Dana White Contender Series veteran. He was not a Dana White looking for a fight. He wasn't, I won the LFA title. That's my free contract to the UFC. He was signed to come in and fight Renan Barao in Brazil. That was it. He was brought in specifically to lose. And this is a repetitive theme, not only just on this card, but just in general, is that we love fighters that used to go out there and throw it on the line. You know what I mean? We love those guys. We loved Renan Barao. We loved, Penn. We loved these, probably kind of not quite as shot, but eventually you got to realize, I saw someone post the other day, put the whole John Jones thing in USADA, and they said, I don't like USADA. I liked watching Anthony Pettis be Anthony Pettis. I liked watching Johnny Hendricks be Johnny Hendricks. I don't know that that's all the way USADA, or just guys like Johnny Hendricks, give him the steroids back. It's not going to make a difference. He's shot. That's what happens to aging athletes. And these guys are aging athletes. So I think with Ewell, beating Renan Barao is a huge feather in your cap, but he's all the way shot. Whereas Nathaniel Wood beat Johnny Eduardo, who, is actually Renan Barao's striking coach, but he doesn't have the same name, and he was eating Nathaniel Woods alive before he bailed into a Darce choke for inexplicable reasons that no one will likely ever understand outside of him and his bookie. But it gives you the impression that maybe it was a little further up. I'm going to go with Nathaniel Wood based largely on that grappling game. I mean, he's a little bit younger. I've watched a lot of his fights in the Cage Warriors scene, obviously, where he was the champion. And that, the guy's he's a potent finisher, but I'd like him going for the submissions more than I like him TKOing guys. I think he falls in love ever so slightly sometimes with is getting that big finish by knockout, by just putting it on opponents and laying it on them. But he's got a sneaky, crafty submission game. And the thing with the Johnny Eduardo fight is we discussed this. He can submit Johnny Eduardo. I mean, Johnny Eduardo is still Johnny Eduardo. He's got no ground game. But don't be stupid enough to stand in front of him. The only issue is that he appears to have no ring IQ, because that's exactly what he does. He stands with him. He gets hurt. In the second round, he continues to stand with him. And Johnny Eduardo basically ties his own noose and
basically cashes his own Nathaniel Wood round 2 prop. That's what he did.
That's what I mean. Like there was very few people. We all had Nathaniel Wood, so we were happy. But again, I mean, I don't really understand it. When I look at his opponent Andre Ewell, I think, geez, this is a guy that's long rangy. He looked okay against Henan Barao, being that Henan Barao is short and really slow. He doesn't have that explosiveness. He doesn't have those reflexes. He doesn't have the athleticism to track down a longer, rangier, younger fighter. But Nathaniel Wood does. He's only 25 years old. He should be able to just keep on Ewell the whole time. It's gonna be a brazen gunfight. They're both gonna land shots. Hey, maybe my guy's gonna get hurt here. Maybe Wood gets rocked. Maybe Ewell gets rocked. But at some point, the fight will hit the ground. And I'm hoping to get a couple rounds out of it. Two things there. Thing number one, if the fight does hit the ground, I'm going to take the guy with the grappling advantage, Nathaniel Wood. I think he's more opportunistic. Even just catching that Darce. Like, a Darce is not exactly an easy move. It's not exactly a fluke submission like I'm not saying a guillotine or a rear naked or flukes, but I'm just saying, guys know how to do those stuff. Darce choke, it's like, man, that takes skill, the skill that he clearly has. Whereas Andre Ewell, maybe he catches him. But the big thing for me here is that Nathaniel Wood was supposed to fight Tom Duquesnoy. Tom Duquesnoy pulls out of the fight, and Andre Ewell takes it relatively short notice. Mm-hmm. So now I'm really hoping it becomes a brazen gunfight. Both guys get tired. Both guys fall to the ground. And give me full camp better ground game Nathaniel Wood to catch Andre Ewell. So that'll be my play here. But again, it's very even. If you want to pass, definitely no hard feelings there. If you got, no hard feelings there, it's a close fight. But I'm going to go with the slightly better ground game and the full camp.
We have Uriah Hall taking on Bevan Lewis, or Bevan. I don't know how to pronounce this thing. Bevan Lewis. Uriah Hall, 8,300, and Lewis is 7,900. Straight pick 'em by the odds. Who you got?
You should take Uriah Hall, would be the actual play here. Bevan Lewis could be maybe a bit of a hype job in that, he's 6-0. He's actually the only undefeated fighter on the entire card. He lost as an amateur, but again, as a pro. He comes from Jackson Winklejohn, and he is John Jones's boy. He's John Jones's understudy. This guy's mentored by the greatest of all times, and everybody at the gym says how unbelievably good he is. Jones is on the card. He's got a full camp. How could you not go with this guy? Well, the issue here is that John Jones had previously a boy. He was his understudy, Phil Haas. The guy looked the part, man. He was shredded and super athletic. And they'd interview him, and he'd be like, yeah, you asked John what happened in sparring today. It's like, fuck, this guy beat John Jones up in sparring today? He'd be like, yeah, you asked John how I took his ass down. You're like, damn, this guy took John Jones' ass down? Got signed to World Series of Fighting, and he was fucking terrible, Paul. Not a fighter. Good athlete. Not a fighter. Once the going got tough and he got hit, he couldn't take it. Once the going got tough and he didn't get the quick finish, he gassed out. Phil Haas, he's got a fight coming up in Alaska now. Is a broken prospect by many people's views. Tried out for the Ultimate Fighter, didn't get on, and then lost in World Series of Fighting. No good. Busted prospect. Bevan Lewis, it's not that he's worse than Phil Haas. It's that I'm hearing all the same shit. Fuck, this guy can wrestle. Fuck, this guy's a great athlete. But just like Haas, he's got very little experience on paper. His biggest win would be his win over Dana White Contender Series opponent, Alton Cunningham, which he got the first round finish, and that was, one of very few guys on his record. Actually, it's the only guy he's fought in his career that had 5 fights or more. So the issue here is that, you look at, we got a rising prospect, and he's Jones's boy, and he's from Greg Jackson's camp, and they're giving him to Uriah Hall. Uriah Hall's got named. He's on the backswing, and it's a clear, obvious what the UFC is doing here. They're going to get the young prospect a nice big win over a named opponent, and they could roll him into bigger fights. But Uriah Hall, he's made a career of clipping guys that were supposed to beat him by showing them something they'd never seen before. And to show Gegard Mousasi or Christoph Jocko, or to a certain extent Paulo Costa, who he had a good little go with, to be able to catch those guys by surprise, those are savvy veterans of the game. This is a young kid. You can catch a young kid by surprise. And that's kind of what Hall does. So Lewis never been knocked out. I don't know if his chin's any good. Maybe he's got a cast iron chin, but maybe he can't take a punch. I don't actually know. His wrestling's legit. You know what? I bet you he takes down Uriah Hall and smashes him. Can he take down Uriah Hall and smash him for 15 minutes? Because, like, Hall, to a certain extent, he can last, he can go. Whereas, like, this guy's got, you know, a couple fights in LFA that went to the decision and really looked to gas. But against Colin Huckbody, like, are you going to gas against that guy? That'd be a big problem. So he's taken a big jump up in competition. And I want to bet him just because I don't bet Uriah Hall. Never bet Uriah Hall. I've been owned I have. Him bang both, I guess. But yeah, like he's so untrustworthy. I would never trust him. But this is a dangerous fight because I think a lot of people are buying into the hype of Pavon Lewis. A lot of people are getting even who's that guy the other day? T. Edwards, right? T. Edwards out of Arizona.
Yep.
Fuck, man. He can wrestle, and he's a great athlete. He's out of a great camp, and he looks so good. He's knocking guys out left, right, center in the first round. You don't know his limits. Like I said with Pavon Lewis, he's the only undefeated guy in the card. That's not a great thing. Because everybody else learned those lessons. John Jones, let's be real, he should be undefeated. But you got to learn lessons along your career. You know, other guys, whether it be Peter Yan, who has the one loss, or Ryan Hall has the one loss, Alexander Volkanovski has the one loss, but they all lost, and they all got better because of it. Pavon Lewis is going to lose at some point. He'll get better because of it. But if I had a young kid like him, young prospect, I just got him a UFC contract. You can match him up with any of the other number of young prospects that you have in the division. Build him up slowly. Uriah Hall, he's a gatekeeper. But is Pavon Lewis at 6-0? Is he ready to try to get through the gate? Gatekeeper usually protects the top 15. And this guy's getting a good gatekeeper. Is he trying to prove he's top 15 at this point, so young, so early in his career? Maybe he wrecks Hall. And then he's the real deal, and everybody says, hey, you know, this kid's for real here. Big, long reach on him. Good size for the weight class. He's the real deal. Or maybe Uriah Hall does what Uriah Hall does, and he catches them with a spinning hook kick or a flying knee or, you know, anything. Hall's got a big – we talk about chips on your shoulder. Hall's got a big chip on his shoulder. He might get cut here. He's got a terrible record at 13-9. If he loses here, he's 13-10. He's already in his mid-30s, 34 years old. He was a flash in the pan. They called him the next Anderson Silva. He never panned out. But the guy comes to fight every time. He does not quit. He's been in some tough fights. He's taken some lickings, but he also went 3 rounds against the current champion, Robert Whittaker, just a couple of years ago. He's got back class this kid hasn't seen yet, and that's what makes it dangerous. And it is dangerous because, you know, he's the underdog to this unheralded kid that has a lot of hype. But again, I've seen that hype before on Hawes, and it didn't work out. So I'm going to say pass, and I'm going to say if Hall was a little bit better on DK as a floater, as a punt play, you could do a lot worse. But yeah, coming into that near 8,000 range or 8, because he's a near even money fight, you know, you're banking on a guy that is a flash in the pan. You know, he wins 20% of the time spectacular fashion, and the other 80% he looks, you know, pretty human. But again, looks human against superhuman competition. The last guy that sucked that beat him was Rafael Natal, and just hopefully he's made improvements since then.
And being able to pinpoint the time that Uriah Hall is going to turn on the primetime Hall, it's just almost impossible.
Yeah, exactly. Impossible.
We have Curtis Millender taking on Seer Bahadurzada. Curtis Millender, 8,800 on DraftKings, minus 155 favorite. Bahadurzada is 7,400 and plus 135. Seer's super tough, good durability. Big issue that I see here, and what I've seen in terms of the improvements from Curtis Millender in terms of to now where he's at from where he was at his Bellator days, just like he's really good at using that reach. So he has a 78-inch reach, and Seer has 72 and a half. So it's like 6 inch reach advantage is going to really serve him well in this spot here. I think he maintains range pretty well. I don't know if Seer's fast enough to keep up the pace and the speed that Millender is going to have. I don't know if I really want to play him here because you're only going to be able to, depending on the number of lineups that you have. But Millender, I don't know if he's going to have the volume to really pay off that price tag. But he is a guy that I do see the path to him. I think he's got the right type of skill set to pose problems for Seer Bahadurzada. It's just whether I play him or not. I do like the minus 155 though. I see him winning. Sear's really, really hard to put away, so I see him probably winning by decision. But minus 155 ain't not too shabby either.
Yeah, I agree. With Cyborg Bahadurzada, it's like he's so tough that he always is going to pose some problems with you. But yeah, I think Chris Millender's built both sides and just physical style to defeat Cyborg Bahadurzada. Bahadurzada, he's not that he's short. He's 5'11" at 185 pounds. It's not exactly small. At 170 pounds. Sorry, but Chris Millender, he's got the height advantage. He's got a nearly 6-inch reach advantage. I'm going to say he's a better striker because, truthfully, he's faster. He's a little more explosive. He doesn't have that raw brute power, but he's a lot more sharper. He's sharper, more technical. Whereas Bahadurzada's got power for days, but he just moves side to side and unloads on you with hooks. Yes, that can work. It can most definitely work. But Bahadurzada, I almost get the feeling that he's slowing down. His body's breaking down a little bit, and he needs the right opponent. And could he beat Millender? Yeah, but he'd have to get it to the ground. Because I don't have faith in him getting the fight to the ground immediately. He's going to have a problem. First and foremost, you got to look at the fact that just 2 fights ago, when he fought Rob Wilkinson, it was at 185. He had moved up to 185 because he took a year and a half, almost 2 years off from the sport. Comes back as an 85er, wins against Wilkinson, drops down against Juan Chagas. I did not think he looked good in that first round. And in the second round, he lands a big body kick that folds Chagas. We talked about this a little bit earlier in the show. You look at that last result. You look at something like Nathaniel Wood with a second round Darce. It's like, oh, fuck, took the guy out. It's like, yeah, dude, he didn't really look good against Chagas. Chagas wants to stay on the outside, wants to strike. Well, that's exactly what Millender wants to do. Millender wants to stay at the outside. He wants to strike. The last time Bahadurzada lost, a long time ago, but you have to look at it because he doesn't fight very often. But his fight with John Howard's 5'8". He's your size. And, he's just a little bit more of a technical striker. He's a little faster. He's a little sharper than you. He just outpoints him. That's all you got to do. Millender can do exactly that. The one thing that kind of makes me nervous is that when I look at Bahadurzada's 3-fight winning streaks, they're tailor-made for him, right? Juan Chagas, he's a little reckless and he's a little open and he stands in front of you. He caught him. Rob Wilkinson, buddy, all day. Don't even worry about that. Yeah. The Brandon Thatch fight, I lost money on that fight because I backed Thatch as I stupidly did in pretty much all of his fights. And Thatch got no ground game, dude. You can bop on Bahadurzada, but the guy's tough. And eventually, if he gets to the ground, he's just going to outmuscle you. And that's Millender's problem. Like you mentioned, he's made a lot of improvements since his Bellator days, but it's also hard to gauge exactly the improvements because in his Bellator days, they were taking him down and submitting him. But nowadays, they're not taking him down and submitting him. They're standing in front of him. Thiago Alves stood right in front of him. Max Griffin stood right in front of him. His LFA opponents, both Nick Barnes and Max Francu, they both got kicked in the head. Why? Because they were standing right in front of him. If he gets taken down, I don't know that he's that much better on the ground anymore. And Cyborg Bahadurzada trains at a high level, has a decent little ground game, and he's kind of almost made a career at it, just breaking these guys they're a little faster, they're a little more technical than him, but he wears you down. They used to call him the Afghan killer back in the day, but I think because of the whole tough times between America and Afghanistan, they switched him to Cyborg the Great, but. Dude, he's the Afghan killer for a reason. You don't want to fight this guy. He's menacing. Win or lose, he's going to give you a fight, and that's exactly what you're going to get. I got Millender, as I said, because I think he's faster, more athletic, and he's just going to outpoint. I think it's going to go 15. I think Millender's going to get the decision. I think that's that. But with Cyborg, if the fight hits the ground, I'm definitely going to be sweating because Millender just really hasn't proved that he's made those improvements on the ground. And, yeah, I know, Brennan Ward, Fernando Gonzalez. Yeah, he hasn't had to do it yet, but Cyborg will stand with you and will give you everything he's got. And if he can't beat you standing, he might try to bulldoze you over and submit you. And that's where things will become interesting. So, again, if you're looking for a punt play, you could do a lot worse than Cyborg because, again, it's a punt. You're getting yourself into. He's going to come in here as a slight dog, but a decent price on DraftKings, and you could get that finish. But I've really liked what I've seen from Curtis Millender. I've been on him in his first 2 fights in the UFC, and I see no real reason to get away from him right now. But there's a lot of love out there for Cyborg, both because he's very entertaining, and people realize that he's a legit guy that exposes people. And Millender maybe still has some room to get exposed. So I see the merit to Cyborg, but I like some of the other underdogs better than a guy that's mid-30s, hasn't fought very often, injury problems, and whenever you talk to Cyborg, he's like blood and guts. It's not like I'm going to fucking trick this guy, get him on the ground, and choke his ass out. It's like fans want to see cheering. Fans want to see knockout. I'm going to take his head off. All right, dude. If that's your prerogative, go for it. But I'll fade you if that's the case. And he's not one of those guys that just says it to say it. He fucking lives it, man. That's who he is. So give me Millender by decision.
Finally, we have Montel Jackson taking on Brian Kelleher. Montel Jackson, 8,400 on DraftKings, minus 160 favorite. Kelleher is 7,800 plus 140. This fight was supposed to go on beginning of November, and Kelleher, like the day of the fight, had to pull out due to illness, or maybe it was the day before, but it was during fight week, obviously. I think both of us were saying that we kind of preferred Kelleher in that spot because, hell, Johnny Lineker wasn't able to really put this guy away, and he was able to take all of his best punches. Montel Jackson, based on his style, he's generally just like a horrible draft. He has the template of a horrible DraftKings fighter. He's like a counter striker, super quick and slick and all of that good stuff, but he's not going to really rack up the points. Kelleher is more the more apt to push forward, put the pace on you. If I had to play somebody from this fight, I would be playing Kelleher, even though despite his weight cut issues and illness from his last time out when these guys were supposed to fight. But this is more or less a stay away for me. Unless I really have to, I would go with Kelleher. I definitely don't want to be rostering Montel Jackson, though, because his style just doesn't. His style lends to a 60-point, 30-27 victory that doesn't do you any sort of good. Maybe you could play him in cash, but he's not. He doesn't have the upside that you need in GPPs for sure.
Yeah, this is a classic Cody Saftic flippy-floppy, I think. I had Brian Kelleher the last time out as well. I think a lot of the reasoning there was Montel Jackson has only been fighting pro for a year. He's got no experience. He started training in MMA like 2 years ago. Very, 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 very light on experience. Fantastic athlete. Seems to be picking it up very quickly. I think he's at Pura Vida BJJ in Milwaukee. Yeah, it seems like he's a good prospect. But, I mean, come on. The guy's got no experience. He hasn't really fought anybody. And on top of that, he hasn't really been fighting. He's been fighting nobody for virtually no amount of time. Comes on the Ultimate Fighter, gets the win. Didn't think he deserved the contract, but a good little win all the same. And he pretty much smoked this guy pillar to post despite just so many low blows in that fight. Like, awful. They took points off of him because he just kept blowing this poor bastard. And then he knocked him out finally. It's like, Jesus Christ. Takes his debut against Ricky Simon on short notice. And I didn't think he looked bad, but Simon was really all over him. Out-wrestles him. This kid's got grappling deficiencies. He's so young in his career that obviously he's not picking everything up at once. And if he's more of a striker, then what's one thing that's lacking on grappling? Got out-grappled. I thought he put up a valiant effort against Ricky Simon, but lost. So then they make the Kelleher fight. And this is why I'm on Kelleher. He took that fight with Ricky Simon on short notice, and he got exposed in the fact he couldn't grapple. He was taking the fight with Kelleher 3 months after the Simon fight, definitely didn't make any improvement on his grappling, and was also coming into that fight on short notice. So here you got a young kid, 2 fights in the UFC, both short notice, weeks notice, can't wrestle, hasn't learned to wrestle in the 12 weeks since his last fight. Kelleher is a good grappler. He's going to get on him. This is why I'm flipping on it now. Brian Kelleher, yeah, his body shut down cutting weight. So now he's got to make that weight again. And imagine had they actually fought that night, we didn't know Kelleher was sick. Kelleher would have lost. And we would have all been like, oh, fuck, Kelleher's not all that good. No, Kelleher is good. It's just he had a bad weight cut. I don't know that he's necessarily corrected that. But what he's actually gone ahead and done here is given this kid another 8 weeks to train for this fight. So he's not on short notice anymore. And the 12 weeks he had to shore up his wrestling, well, fuck. Now he's got 6 months to shore up his wrestling. And 4 months, 5 months actually, almost 5 months. And when you're young and you're athletic and you're training at a high level, you're going to pick up skills quick. Clearly, this kid's an example. He's picked up a lot of MMA skills for someone who's only been training 2 years. They say his hand is the biggest hand in the UFC. They say it's bigger than Francis Ngannou. They say his grip is the strongest grip in the UFC. The kid's a freak of nature. The thing is, he got a slow start. So whereas I thought Kelleher would out-grapple him because he was on short notice 5 months ago, giving him an extra 5 months to develop, and Brian Kelleher now has to recut to a weight that previously caused his body to shut down and caused him to be sick. He's not 100% taking on a kid who's probably going to be very close to 100%, being that he's young and is not banged up physically. It's going to give Kelleher a problem. This kid's longer than Kelleher. I don't want to say he's a better striker just because, Kelleher's really been in there against the who's who. He did get finished by John Lineker, but you're right, dude. Those punches, it's like, it takes a very special human being to be able to stand up to some of those blows. And Brian Kelleher did it. He's durable. He's a good grappler. I think he's only a brown belt, but, very good BJJ stylist. A couple wins over Julio Arce in the regional scene just really showed how many tough guys this guy fought before even getting to the UFC. Big wins in the UFC as well. We talk about Renan Barão. Renan Barão was an Andre Ewell shot when Brian Kelleher absolutely fucking destroyed him.
Mm-hmm.
How could you not get behind this guy? But, it's a different style. Now he's not taking an old shot veteran. He's taking on this young, quick fighter who, again, I think it's going to come down to the grappling. Brian Kelleher's a smart guy. Yeah, Kelleher's a smart guy. I think he knows I got to get this guy down. But I think when you look at the Ricky Simon fight, you think, geez, it's easy to get this guy down. But no, he gets up every time. And the second thing is, I think he's going to have made a lot of improvements. I'm not going to say he's, we talk about the Sage Northcutts and the Jake Matthews and just give these guys some time to improve. But I bet you the kid that you saw in short notice against Ricky Simon is not the same guy that you're going to see against Brian Kelleher. And for that reason, I'm going to go Kelleher. I don't love minus 160 on a MMA Neo fight against a savvy veteran like Kelleher, but Kelleher's smoking weed now and he's freestyle rapping and he's in his 30s and he's got a podcast and. Yeah, well, his old he sounds like
he also does this weird.
He had a podcast with smoke weed.
He also does this weird thing where like he takes like a Instagram video of himself while he's taking a dump, and then he just rants while he's sitting on the toilet. He's a strange dude. He's a strange dude.
Here's one for you that you might appreciate actually. So I watched Kelleher for a long time. Again, New York regional guy. He was fighting a lot of guys that I was very familiar with. When Robin Black got let go from the Fight Network. A lot of people had reached out to Robin and just been like, hey, Rob, I'm a big fan and I'm going to follow your work and wherever you land, it's a big mistake Fight Network letting you go. Brian Kelleher reached out to Robin Black and was like, hey, man, I'm a pro fighter. I have my own podcast. I'm a big fan of yours. I'd love to do a show with you, or if you're not doing anything now because you just got to let go, I'd love to do something with you. And Robin basically just laughed the guy off. Didn't even know who he was. And then Kelleher's whole thing was bucket list, make it to the UFC. Not bucket list, be a world champion. Not bucket list, make it to the top 15. He had a show. He had 20 fights on the regional scene. He was already in his near 30s. He was thinking about retiring, but decided, let's have one last crack at making the UFC. And he made the UFC. And he's had some fun fights in the UFC. But yeah, you're right. He's got a great social media presence. He's taking shits on Instagram and he's rapping and he's advocating weed and he's getting into that business. And, sometimes he shows up in great form. Sometimes he shows up just okay. That's all one guy's going to bed thinking about multiple things that night. And I can fucking guarantee you that this kid he's fighting is going, Montel Jackson's going to bed one thing on his mind, 26, late start to MMA, time to crush, time to do it, time to show the world who you are. And this would be a good little fight for him. So it's interesting to see that Kelleher had much better value before the UFC 230 fight. Now UFC 232 rolls around, he's a bigger underdog. Well, why is that? Maybe people are thinking the same thing I'm thinking. Give this kid more time to develop and a full camp, and Kelleher's maybe got one foot. I don't know, but it's interesting to see that the odds weren't the same. They're moving in favor of this Montel Jackson. So am I. But I'm flipping flopping because I did have Kelleher last time around.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Better athlete, younger in his career, and you give him more time. The amount of improvements that you see from fight to fight to fight, that amount of time is probably, he's learned so much during that time, and Kelleher is probably the same guy still worrying about his weight cut heading into this one. Any final thoughts before we wrap it up here for ya?
Yeah, that's about it. I thought I had some hot take, but I don't really know what it is right now. UFC Jones versus Gustafsson won. I don't care what anybody says. I was there live and I've watched it multiple times back. It's 4-1 Jones. So don't give me that bullshit. Gustafsson won the fight. Don't give me that bullshit. Gustafsson's made the improvements since then. I got Jones winning this one. And that's about it. I'm looking really forward to these fights. Obviously, if you want to know anything about PFL, because obviously we have a DraftKings deal with PFL now, shoot me up on and I'm really hoping they release Ryzen odds, because I'm fucking all over that too. But yeah, you know how this stuff goes. I mean, I might release it like a couple hours before midnight or something stupid like that. But all the same, there's a lot of MMA. It's been a great year. Paul, that last card is actually my first bad card in a while. So let's cap it off the right way. And it's been a great year, Paul. Obviously, thanks to all the viewers. They continue to make the show as good as it is, because without them, obviously, there is nothing. I don't want to get sappy or emotional, but really do appreciate that, because we talk about Rob and getting let go and life goes on. But it's like our show could have struggled. Our show could have disappeared and it would be the end of it. But, you're a big help, Paul. But the fans brought it back. The demand brought it back. And I'm just really happy with the work we're doing. So thanks to you. Thanks to Pat. Thanks to DraftKings. And most of all, thanks to the people that hit like, leave their DK handle with a comment, all that jazz. Really do appreciate it.
100%. I will say one last thing before we go. Jones versus Gustafsson 1 was the first time I ever had to be live at an event to, I was like credentialed, had all of that type of stuff. And, a lot of people out there would be like, oh, that's so cool. It fucking sucked, man. It was awful. I was sitting in a room, like writing up, clipping clips. I didn't get to see very much. Khabib Nurmagomedov was in the same room as me. I didn't even have time to even be like, I love you. You're the best. Like it was awful. So everybody talking about getting credentialed, going to events and stuff. No, it's so much more fun going.
No, dude, yeah.
It is so much more fun going as a fan. Don't let these people tell you any different. It is a million times better sitting there with your buddies, having some brews or whatever floats your boat while you're in attendance at a fight. Not that I wouldn't ever go as a credentialed member of the media again, but it's way more fun going to sports events as a fan. So don't buy into the bullshit that people put out there.
There's nothing better than when you're getting kicked out of the venue to just say "fuck you." But if you're accredited as a member, you can't do none of that. You can't get kicked out. You can't say "fuck you."
No.
You can't nothing.
No, I couldn't even cheer about anything. I would have looked unprofessional.
Brutal.
Anyway, that wraps it up for us.
Yeah.
Oh. What were you going to say? Yeah.
I was going to say, yeah. It's all about looking professional. When I was a kid, I stood in line to meet Kurt Pellegrino for an hour. But that ain't me no more, dog. Gotta look professional.
100%. All right. Thank you to Cody Saftic.
Kurt Pellegrino for life.
Thank you to Cody Saftic for breaking down the fights with me, as always. Thank you to Pat Mayo for all his hard work behind the cameras there. For both of those guys, I'm Paul Shaughnessy saying goodbye and good luck.
Fan Mayo experience! Experience!